Entering the Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings 2020 ZOZO Championship. First look, picks, preview, course, research. We got it all for you. All of the info that I am getting today, searching the stats, customizing everything, plus all the tools available at fantasynational.com. Now, if you go to fantasynational.com/Mayo, you get yourself 20% off a Fantasy National membership, and I highly suggest you get the monthly membership to fantasynational.com today because it brings you all the way through the Masters. So that's probably something you're going to want. Tons of money available at the Masters right now. The prize pools on DraftKings are going to be enormous. So if you want to win some qualifiers, whether it be at the ZOZO, the Houston, the Bermuda, you're going to have all of those tools and lineup generator, the custom models, everything like that available to you for the next month. And you're going to want it for the Masters. So you might as well do it now and get yourself that 20% discount. We're back at Sherwood Country Club for the first time in almost 10 years because of the pandemic going on. The Korean tournament obviously got moved to Las Vegas last weekend. The Japanese tournament, that's where the ZOZO had been initially scheduled. First time it happened was last year. Now it is at Sherwood Country Club just outside of Los Angeles. And if we look at the scorecard and we jump into it, we see that this is a par 72, just over 7,000 yards, which is kind of crazy. It's 7,300 yards. So you'd think, oh, the Bombers are just going to feast at this course. However, we go back and look at the Hero World Challenge, which, albeit is not a huge sample size, it was played at this course from 2000 to 2013. Tiger won 5 times. Tiger came second 5 times. Well, what does that tell you? Well, Tiger was the best player of all time for that 10-year period. So that makes a lot of sense. Plus, he plays this course a lot. It's a Jack Nicklaus design. It's bent grass greens, and there's only 78 players in the field this week with no cut. But the biggest feature is there's 5 par 5s, as you can see, and 5 par 3s. The weird thing about it is if you venture off the fairway at this course, you're in a lot of trouble. There's a lot of weird elevation at this tournament as well. So you'll see, you'd think like, oh, the eagle rate is going to be off the charts. Not so much. In fact, when we jump into the key stats, it's a lot of wedge players. You can see the past 5 winners at this course. Zach Johnson, 13 under, Graham McDowell, 17 under, Tiger, 10 under, Graham McDowell, 16 under, Jim Furyk, 13 under. What do those guys outside of Tiger have in common? Accuracy, wedges, putting. That's their game. So it's a very unique course inside of that setup. Now, when we jump over to the actual setup here, as you can see, there are, 51 bunkers on the course. There are 4 water hazards, but water is going to be in play for 8 of the holes. The greens are 7,200 square feet. That would put them above average, or just average to above average in terms of size. So lag putting can come into play. As you can see, bent grass fairways, bent grass tees, and bent grass greens. 3 par 3s, 3 par 4s, and 3 par 5s on the back 9, which is just kind of crazy. You can get into tree trouble here. If you venture off the fairway, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So a lot like last week, as we kind of jump over and take a quick peek at the field here just initially, is that you're going to find a lot of birdies being made, but a lot of really crooked numbers being made if you're not striking the ball well. So overall, the main thing that I'm looking for from my players this week in terms of key stats is going to be just general ball striking, as it is every single week. That is the most important thing that you can do. But wedge play is going to be very important as well. When you see guys like Zach Johnson and Graham McDowell and Jim Furyk, like, wait, 125 and in, these guys are really good. They can feast on the par 5s this way because, the Bombers are going to try to go for it in 2, but Eagles are not going to be prevalent this week. So a lot like how Zach Johnson actually won the Masters the year that he did, where he didn't go for a single par 5 and 2 and really relied on his wedge game. I think that's what you're going to see a lot from this ZOZO field. So as you can see, the field is stacked like it normally is. Tiger's back in the field. No Bryson this week. Dustin Johnson may or may not play because of his positive COVID test. Tony Finau should be back from his positive COVID test from 2 weeks ago. Mayo. He has withdrawn the past 2 weeks, so we'll see where his game is. I'm going to just adjust we can go past 50 rounds. Let's go last 3 months as we adjust to everything to kick off so we can get a good sample of what's going on. Another interesting thing about those winners that I had mentioned, whether it be Furyk, ZJ, and GMAC, like Tiger has been good everywhere, and Tiger's even in play this week for what it's worth. But the biggest thing, like Heritage, Mayakoba, Colonial, like those short courses on tour seem to have a lot of correlation, at least historically, with this course. The biggest problem that you're going to encounter this time around is that the good players all in the world, whether it be, Xander or Dustin, if we look at strokes gained tee to green over the past, or just let's take a look at ball striking over the past 3 months. Dustin and Wolf tied for first. Bubba, Rahm, Finau, Connor, Scheffler, Kokrak, Justin Thomas, and Paul Casey are all ranked really high on that list. That's the top 10. Then you have Morikawa and Russell Henley, Rory, Neiman, and Dylan Fratelli, who can't make a fucking putt to save his life. Thanks for fucking nothing, Dylan. Not spitting hot fire last week at the CJ Cup. But the main thing that you're going to want here is if that is a circumstance where these bombers can kind of club down, regain their accuracy, then all of a sudden it's going to be a bit of a different story. But you can probably target almost any player in the field if you really want to this week. And I do think that there is going to be a correlation. At least that's the angle that I'm going to take, unless I get talked out of it, that your accuracy, good wedge players can really come through. I assume Ryan Moore's not playing, but that would be like a Ryan Moore special. No, he's not in the field this week. But let's take a look at that proximity. Is what I wanted to go into and check out the major wedge range here, the 100 to 125 and 125 to 150. Kuchar is currently listed as in the field. He's the first alternate to get in. He's another guy. We take a look at the Nicklaus courses that you could potentially get into. So 125 or 100 to 125, Horschel, Dustin, Connors, Taylor, JT, Henley, Wolf, Phil, Hoagie. And then Daniel Berger, who won at Colonial earlier this year and placed really well at Heritage, too. Could be a week to go back to Daniel Berger. We'll take a deeper dive into Daniel Berger here in a second, but back on bent, not a terrible thing. Patrick Cantlay actually played not too poorly the final 2 rounds over the weekend, and he's someone who's played Nicklaus courses really well in his career as well. So interesting to see 125 to 150. Henley, Morikawa, Kisner, Justin Thomas, Patrick Reed, Hovland, Hoagie. Hoagie keeps popping up here, although he's always good on approaches. Ricky Fowler, Satoshi Kodaira, only 4 rounds of info to draw from over the past 3 months because they don't allow him to play in many tournaments because he sucks, although he did win me 20K, so shout out to you, Satoshi. Abraham Answer, and then Matthew Wolff. I don't know what to make of Matthew Wolff or Gary Woodland after last week. Maybe you just throw it out. I don't know. But that's a really interesting circumstance to really dive into. And let's jump back out and go back to overall strokes gained. I do want to take a look, and we're going to get rid of the past 3 months and go to all records. Past 50 rounds, let's shrink that size to past 24 rounds, and there is one player I do have in mind that I normally hate so much, but we're going to search by Jack Nicklaus designed courses here once everything ends up loading itself in. Click on Jack Nicklaus courses. A lot of fire going on for the ZOZO field here. So you can see Glen Abbey, Muirfield Village for Workday and Muirfield Village overall, Nicklaus Tournament Course, PGA National, PGA West, and Valhalla. You can almost throw Heritage into that as well because that's like a co-design. I don't know why this isn't loading. Thanks for nothing. Let's reboot this up here and see if we can... Maybe the search was just too precise when it came down to it in terms of strokes gained. Maybe the Jack Nicklaus feature is not working out too well for us here. Anyway, the answer to the question would be Mackenzie Hughes, who tends to pop up at these tournaments, Nicklaus Designs. He was god-awful last week. Let's just do the deep dive into Daniel Berger now while that decides to load itself in. Obviously, bent, not his preferred putting surface overall. However, you can see even last week at the around the green, the putting was very poor. At the U.S. Open, the putting was good, the driving was bad. You want to be a good driver of the ball. You want to be good on approaches here. But the approach outside of the BMW Championship has been fire for Daniel Berger, and you can see that his win and his 3rd place finish, and then his 4th place finish, which is also a Jack Nicklaus design at the Honda Classic. Now, 2 of those are on Bermuda. 1 is on bent. That would be the Charles Schwab, where he ended up winning. I can see people being off of him after just a string of just very poor performances in a row. I like Daniel Berger this week. I think this is a nice spot for him. when you go to DK Sportsbook and check out the odds. I believe he is coming in at around 33 to 1 when it comes down to it. So let's see here. We'll go to Sports, ZOZO Championship. See where Daniel Berger, 30 to 1 on DraftKings Sportsbook right now. I'd shop around for that number, but that's my first real look for the week when it comes down to it. Oh, everything has loaded for the Nicklaus courses. So, Nicklaus courses for the past 24 rounds. Let's go to strokes gained, ball striking. Adam Scott, Patrick Cantlay, Justin Thomas, Dustin Johnson, Gary Woodland, who lost like 49 million strokes off the tee last week. Henley, another good Nicklaus course player. It might be time just to ride Russell Henley. I know he wasn't like great last week. I know he came in third, but a lot of that had to do with a very solid putting streak. You can see 9 strokes putting, but it's not like he was a slouch off the tee or in approach, gaining ball striking wise, over 7 strokes combined. It was around the green game in the final round. He lost over a stroke in the final round that really held him back from making a run. As you can see, just the irons have been really good. That was actually a bad iron performance based on what he's been up to recently. If we look at his splits, Bermuda and bent is where he kind of gets his groove into. So I don't hate going back to Russell Henley again this week. Well, I want to take a deeper look at Fleetwood as well. I'll throw him onto the list as someone to kind of check out from last week. I suppose we should take a look into last week's CJ Cup to see who kind of popped as well. But just overall, in terms of ball striking, you have Scott, Cantlay, Thomas, Dustin, Gary Woodland, Henley, Fleetwood, Morikawa, Palmer, Paul Casey, Byung-Hun An, Hideki, Xander, Rahman, Rose over the past 24 rounds on Jack Nicklaus courses. Again, that does not include the Heritage, which you can chalk up as a co-design as well. If we just look at strictly approach, Scott, Woodland, Tiger, Henley, Cantlay, Thomas, Fleetwood, Morikawa. If we do look at Tiger a bit more in depth, we see, obviously, he putts better on Bermuda. He just not he putted okay at the U.S. Open. The driving has been really, really poor for him over his past 2 events. And before that, you can see that the putting was horrendous. However, the approach game has been really good for Tiger. And we jump back to, where is Tiger coming in this week? 33 to 1. You can find him, I've seen him as low as 40 at some places. I know it's weird to go to Tiger in a field like this, although he is the defending ZOZO champion. Different course, mind you. But again, he's won this course 5 times. He plays it all the time. Dustin Johnson also plays this course a lot. I don't know if he's going to play or not, mind you. But Wayne Gretzky is a member here, and he plays with his father-in-law, apparently a lot when it comes down to the Sherwood Country Club. Although Tiger at deeper odds could be a way to look at that this week. I think if you just want to look at objectively, Justin Thomas of the guys in the top end, and I mean, I bet Morikawa every week. I doubt that's going to change much. Let's click off the filter for Jack Nicklaus and just get back to everything overall and filter everything back to the last 3 months. Bubba Watson is going to be a pretty talked up player this week, and I don't really know what to make of him. Obviously, the ball striking has been really good overall. As you can see, when we just kind of sort by everything, over his past 5 tournaments, over 3 on approach, over 3 off the tee. Over his past 10, like, he's just getting better and better and better every single week. We're back on bent. That is his worst putting surface. So maybe just, except for when he's at the Masters, apparently. Oh, and on Fantasy National, if you just go by reverse date, we have stats back to 2004 now instead of just 2012. So I thought that was interesting. We've done a partnership with the PGA Tour and ShotLink. That is now official. So that's just more information available. It goes back longer term if you want to research some of these like really classic tournaments. I don't know what to make of Bubba. He's 40 to 1 to win this tournament. He's down to 35 to 1 or 40 to win at the Masters. It's strange to think that I would actually prefer him at the Masters to here, because maybe he can get something going on the greens, but he's just putting himself out of all these tournaments. The around the green has really taken a huge flip after losing in 6 consecutive events. He's now gained in 4 straight, which is kind of shocking. He made the cut at the U.S. Open. That is not Bubba-like whatsoever. But can he putt enough to win, I guess, is the problem. The DraftKings pricing isn't out as I begin this video. However, if he's a decent price, he's going to be chalky, but you might just have to eat that chalk. At least at the Charles Schwab earlier this year, he did gain off the tee. He gained in all 4 facets, even on the green. So maybe it could be a week for Bubba. I don't know my final conclusion on Bubba as of yet, but I'm starting to think that it could be pretty good for him. I wanted to take a look at two players in particular here. One was going to be Tommy Fleetwood, who I assume is way down on this list. I went to him over Hatton last week, which is a terrible idea. But if we look at his past 24 rounds, it felt like he played better on the weekend at the CJ Cup. The ball striking was bad overall. The approaches were bad. Yeah, he had a good round on approach. Finally figured out the driving in the final round. I don't know what's going on with him. When he was over in Europe the past 2 weeks, the driving was immaculate. The approaches were good. He gets back over here and he's absolute dog shit. Don't quite understand that one too much. I would prefer it to be a lot better than that, to be perfectly honest with you. And I wanted to take a look at Patrick Cantlay, who I felt like was playing a lot better over the weekend. And let's see, ball striking wise was good in round one, was really bad on approach. Lost in 3 out of 4, gained off the tee. I'm curious to see if he can get his irons back together. It's been kind of a rough go for his irons lately. Maybe I have to fade Cantlay once again. Well, that's a bummer. Morikawa. Just trying to find some value from down in this field. Looks like it's back to Henley once again. Henley and Tom Hoagie. I don't know how Tom Hoagie is getting into these fields. Morikawa on approach last week, bad in the final round. Finally gained off the tee. He needs to get his driving back because that's really where he was making his bread and butter. But you can see the approaches over to, almost to. You like to see that heating up for Collin Morikawa. And as we look through at the beginning when it turned in proximity in terms of a wedge range, that's where you kind of want to be. Kevin Na and Kevin Kisner were the other two I wanted to take a look at. Kisner, obviously a very good history at Colonial over the years, same as Kevin Na, both good in terms of accuracy off the tee and both very good in terms of their putting on bent grass. You can see Kevin Na good on both. The approach was good last week, lost off the tee, but I'm curious to see. I'm not too concerned about off the tee overall. It is the accuracy that I'm concerned about with him. As long as he's hitting fairways, that's really where I want to be when it comes down to distance and accuracy. Why isn't that clicking over? Oh, it's loading, that's why. And we'll take a look at Kevin Kisner. Kisner's been bad off the tee. Obviously a much better putter on bent grass. CJ Cup, I didn't even realize he played last week. I guess I should look at his round by round and see how that turned out for him. Cooch would be interesting to go back to just because it's a Nicklaus course. Most of his wins have come on Nicklaus or Pete Dye courses over the year. Approach, bad off the tee, hit and miss. First time he'd played since the U.S. Open. Kisner's always kind of an enigma. He's won in big fields before, so it's interesting. Fairways gained at the CJ Cup. He gained at Shriners. He missed at the U.S. Open when no one was hitting fairways. Tour Championship. If Kevin Na wants to hit all of his fairways this week, we know that his irons are good. We know his putting can get scorching. I'm going to throw him on the list as a potential bomb. I want to see what he comes in at, and maybe Kevin Kisner as well. If he can ride that hot putter, I'd like to see him be better off the tee. How has he been in terms of accuracy? Because that's usually his thing. He's gaining fairways, at least against the field. If it comes down to a wedge fest, he's kind of like the good version of Zach Johnson. Is Zach Johnson playing? Let's see. No, only Dustin Johnson is maybe playing. So I guess from the top, Dustin and Justin Thomas. Morikawa. Don't know what to do with Xander. I can never get him right. Maybe Matthew Wolff can rebound. I know everyone's going to be off of him just because he was so horrendous last week. Kisner, nah. Henley is someone to look to. Maybe Mackenzie Hughes. Maybe Tiger. It's going to be my short list. I'm going to jump into this in the full DraftKings show on Wednesday when you check this out. Again, this is just a first look and my initial thoughts on everything, the initial research to do. You can go build your model on fantasynational.com again, /Mayo to get yourself that discount. What's old Webley up to? Figured it back out round 4 of the Shriners in terms of round 1 and round 4 at the Shriners was really good. He seems like the type of player who should play well here. Bent's not really his best preferred putting surface, but he's just a good putter overall. You're not really getting a discount on his odds as he comes in at 18-1, the same as Tyrrell Hatton. Since they have Dustin Johnson listed in the field, everyone's odds go down if he ends up withdrawing because of the COVID problems. Justin Thomas at 12-1 is actually a pretty decent value because he's going to go to 10 or even 9-1 should anything happen to Dustin Johnson. He is removed from this field. Scrolling down in terms of the odds, Adam Scott, always interesting. Don't really know where his game is at. Henley at 55 is fucking terrible. That is just brutal to see him after he was 90 last week. I know it's only 78 people in the field. Na at 110 and Kisner at 100. You can bet you can bet basically two of, I mean, I prefer Na and Kisner, obviously, but you can bet two of Todd, Lonto, Hadwin, Kisner, Na, Rose. I mean, you're not going to bet Spieth. Kevin Streelman, Gary Woodland, Ben Ann, Gooch, Higgs for the price of one Henley. Come on, give me a break on that. Even Corey Connors, maybe there's a week he can just run hot. Like we know that his ball striking is fine. That you can even go down to that. If it's fairways, and I mean, Duncan played like okay last week. He's probably going to be like min price again on DraftKings, 250 to 1. So maybe it's a week to play some top 20s. I don't know. Again, that's going to be my first look for the ZOZO Championship. I really do want to do a deeper dive into Tiger and figure out if I do want to eat that Bubba chalk. Probably not going to go back to snorting the old Kokrak this week. Congratulations to Jason Kokrak on his win. You like to see when the good guys end up winning, but like Sergio, like Stuart Sink, Jason Kokrak is just another in that long line of guys who keep popping in models over the past 2 years in terms of ball striking, can just never get it on the same page with their putter that week, and it keeps happening. Just you almost have to keep riding these guys who have the shitty putter and keep ball striking it so immaculately over a short-term period. Maybe the putter just clicks, comes through, and all of a sudden they can win good fields. Like Jason Kokrak winning that is huge. This is the same guy that couldn't get it up and down on the 72nd hole at Valspar when I had money on him to beat fucking Paul Casey of all people. Oh my God. Anyway, that will do it on the Pat Mayo experience. I will have my cheat sheet up on Wednesday. I will have my article in Golf Digest. I will have a pivots play on ftndaily.com. That will all come out Wednesday, as will the Pat Mayo experience full DraftKings breakdown and betting show. So I'll see you on Wednesday. As it turns to golf, remember to smash the like button, give me your early lean in the comment section, rate and review the audio podcast. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!